If you're watching the live stream and you see me like turn my eye over here, it's because I have college basketball on it. Pitt's in the ACC tournament.
Oh, college basketball doesn't matter right now.
Down in DC.
Steelers
It matters
free
to
agency.
It matters to me where I have to pay attention. Listen, I'm not the only one that's doing this kind of thing today. This is that time of year where you turn the side eye to whatever tournament, whatever, team, whatever league you want to turn your eye to. Next week, of course, once March Madness kicks off, the official start of March Madness, that's when, office pools and all that stuff goes on. And yeah, productivity goes, it's studied that productivity goes down in America when March Madness is on because people are watching the games. When you have games on from noon until midnight, people are watching the games. And we're at that time of year. But as Chris said, good afternoon, everybody. Happy March 14th, Thursday, March 14th, 2024, 3 p.m. Eastern, here on the South Side Beat. Chris Halicke, Corey Crisan with you. We will talk NFL. And we will talk Steelers free agency. By the way, you only get one bracket. Just to make this clear, you get one bracket only. You don't get to fill out 45 different brackets.
Fill out as many brackets as I want to.
You can fill out as many as you want, but you got to have one format. You're not going to put UConn as the champ in one, and then Kansas as the other, and then Pitt as the other, and then Penn State as the other, and then with bracket 35 out of 45 hits, you're like, look what I did. No. You get one bracket and one bracket only. That's the rule. You can enter it as many times as you want into as many pools as you want. You get one bracket.
Whatever helps me win money. I don't care how many brackets I fill out.
There's your fair warning.
If it helps me win money, I will fill out 200 of them if I want to. I'll be right back.
Oh, you can fill out 200 brackets. They all have to be the same. If you're going to put Houston winning the national championship, then put Houston winning the national championship in all your brackets. That's my philosophy on it. That's my rule on it. Let's talk about Dejan Elliott. The Steelers made a pretty significant signing, reportedly today. 2 years, $6 million for the former Raven, the former Lion, and most recently the former Miami Dolphin. Now, Omar Khan has been pretty outward about getting players that are versatile. And this extends on both sides of the football. And when you look at Dejan Elliott and his track record, versatility may be a buzzword, but that's the word to describe Elliott, where he plays both safety positions and can roam in the slot. So this is a player who is going to replace Keanu Neal as what I would think is one of the starting safeties. And to me, Chris, what this move does, this is a Minkah Fitzpatrick move. This is something that instead of having Minkah roam around the field like he pretty much had to in 2023. And when I say had to, I mean because there were a lack of bodies back in that secondary and a lack of bodies at inside linebacker. Minkah had to play, I can't say out of position, but he was kind of positionless when it came to a certain part of the season. What Elliott does is he allows Minkah to stick back in the secondary. He allows him to stick back in center field, and he lets Minkah kind of anchor down in the back. I like this move for that reason.
It allows Minkah to be Minkah. I mean that's might be a better way to put it, and that's just let Minkah be Minkah. I feel like he wasn't able to do that as much last year. I liked the trio of Minkah, KZ, and Edmonds. I thought that was a solid group, and now granted we only had that for about half a season because of KZ's injury and suspension, but no, adding Elliott definitely helps Minkah be Minkah again, and I think for the cost that it comes with, for the fact that he's the best way I can put it is that he's a jack of all trades, master of none, which means, I mean, he can do just about everything solid. He can be a good last line of defense. He can help support the run game. He's not great at just about anything, but he's solid at everything. And I think that's a really good guy to have as a Robin to Minkah's Batman, and I think, And plus, Elliott is a bit of a thumper too. He can lay the hammer if he needs to. There are clips now going on Twitter, going around on Twitter of Elliott, truck sticking Derrick Henry. For those who were watching the playoffs last year, Elliott was the one who hit Patrick Mahomes and broke his helmet. So the guy can hit. He can cover. Again, not great at almost anything, but solid at everything. And that's it's a good guy to have back there. I think this is a really, really the biggest concern to me is the injury history.
Sure.
But other than that, for the cost, 2 years, $6 million, probably his cap hit this year will probably be lesser than it will be next year, so that they can have flexibility. That's usually the way the Steelers go. If it doesn't go well this year, then they can just cut their losses and move on. If it goes well, then you just take on a bit of a larger cap hit when the cap goes up again. So I think it's I think it's a good signing. I think it's one of the better ones so far.
Yeah, as Daniel says here, it's great value for a guy that can play really 3 different positions on the field. And I wanted to bring this point back to something that Mark said here in our chat. Mark says we are getting faster overall defensively. When you look at Patrick Queen and Elliott and getting Dante Jackson in the Deontay Johnson trade, those 3 guys are speed upgrades to those positions as well. And when you look at the Steelers defense from last year, technically sound when you have TJ and Cam and, Alex Highsmith and Minka, and now you got Joey Porter Jr. roped into this. Those are all physical players. Those are all physically demanding players. But these 3 moves that they made throughout the defense so far, and by the way, when you talk about how much money the team allocates to the defense, they're sticking to their guns on that philosophy. They're still throwing the checkbook at the defense more than the offense right now.
It's funny because people like Colin Cowherd are the offense is or the league is switching to all offense while the Steelers are continuing to outspend everybody on defense. And, listen, I get that criticism. I do. But, when you think about it this way, again, if you don't have an elite quarterback, which the Steelers don't have, the best way to win is to have an elite defense. That's just the best way to try to win. If you can't have the guns that are going to be able to match Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or Joe Burrow or anybody else shot for shot, then what you need to be able to do is you need to be able to have a really great defense that can kind of help limit those guys. That has been consistent over the course of the game's history. You can go all the way back to the 85 Bears when Jim McMahon was the quarterback, but the defense was so great they won the Super Bowl. You can go to the 2000 Ravens with Trent Dilfer at quarterback, great defense. You can go to the 02 Buccaneers with Brad Johnson at quarterback, all-time great defense. You can go to a certain extent, this is kind of crapping on Ben Roethlisberger a little bit, but the 08 Steelers, all-time great defense. Ben wasn't quite in his prime just yet. Definitely wasn't the most efficient quarterback back then. You can go to the 13 Seahawks. Now, granted, Russell Wilson, probably closer to his heyday then, but still all-time great defense in 13. You continue to go through the game's history. All-time great defenses can help you win a Super Bowl. And I'm not saying that this Elliott signing is, this is the thing that puts them over the top. But when you look at, they shored up the middle of the defense with Patrick Queen. They upgraded the cornerback position opposite Joey Porter Jr. with Dante Jackson. Now they've given Minka Fitzpatrick a very solid running mate at safety and Deshaun Elliott. Again, I'm really the interior of the defensive line, and then maybe a couple of another solid corner. And this defense is looking pretty good, in my opinion. I don't know if I'd quite call it elite or anything like that, but when you shore up all the other areas and you do have elite players like TJ Watt, like Minka Fitzpatrick, like Patrick Queen, then you have the capability of being an elite defense.
Yeah. I still think that they need to add a cornerback. I like Dante Jackson, but I'm not huge as of right now, just looking at the production from him from last year on being that CB2 opposite Joey Porter Jr. I like the speed. I like that ability, and I like that they're picking up on that trait, and they're adding guys that have that trait because they built a pretty physical defense as far as body type goes, as far as play style goes. But they needed a couple of guys that can, lack of a better phrase here, run down some guys. And that's what they've done with these 3 ads here over the last few days between Queen, Elliott, and of course Jackson. Now, I saw a few comments that really looped this back in, and I think Joshua puts it good here. Joshua says last year you could see the pendulum swing back to defense ever so slightly league-wise. Kansas City does not win the Super Bowl last year without that defense. And I think there's validity to that. You know, when you talk about how cyclical the NFL is, when you talk about how there was this big boom 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and of course you could look at the Ben Roethlisberger, Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers draft. You could look at the Drew Breeses and the Peyton Mannings. Like, of course, it's become a quarterback dominant league, but now you're starting to see maybe there was a trend of overcompensation to a degree where teams are starting to draft faster defenders and starting to overload on defense and to swing that pendulum, so to speak, back to defense. Now, look, is this the Steelers zagging when everyone else is zigging, when everyone else is trying to stockpile offense and load that arsenal up, so to speak? Is this the Steelers counterpunch to say, well, if we're going to face strong offenses every week, we better have a strong defense? Is that what the philosophy is coming to here? Because like the moves on defense, they're allocating the money on the defense. They're allocating the years on the defense. On the offense, they just traded Deontay Johnson, who was a pretty significant cap hit. Yep. Chuks Okorafor is gone, who was a significant cap hit. They're allocating between Kenny Pickett and Russell Wilson not even $5 million to the most important position in sports. So just look at how this team's structured. It's the same exact argument why, you know, a month ago when we sat here and talked about, oh, Kirk Cousins or Justin Fields, yeah, going to get one of those guys is fine, but they still have to open the checkbook for the position. And if they open the checkbook for Kirk Cousins, you saw how much money Atlanta paid him. They would have to shift, and I'm not making this up, shift the entire structure of how the team's built. Yeah. Look at what the Chargers just had to go through to become cap compliant, to fit in the salary cap by the time the new league year started. They had to shed Mike Williams. They had to cut guys to get into the salary cap, and Justin Herbert's making crazy money. So that's why if you're not building it like the Chiefs, right, where you have Hall of Fame caliber quarterback, you better build it like the 49ers, where you have the best roster 2 through 53 in football.
Yeah, and really quick, Mark was asking if the Steelers had re-signed Breeden Fehoko, which that was
a while ago,
well over a week ago. That they brought him back. So, Fehoko is there. Right now, interior defensive line, they've got Cam Hayward, Larry Ogunjobi, Keanu Benton, Breeden Fehoko, and I want to say maybe another guy or two, but they could definitely add another, add a bit more quality there. I agree. And listen, everybody wants to have the problem. Everybody. And I don't think there's a franchise in football that would love to have the problem of crap. We got to pay a franchise quarterback. I mean, if the Steelers had one, they'd be paying him. You know, they did that for 18 years. Obviously, not quite 18 because obviously you had Ben Roethlisberger on a rookie contract. But you will put up with that if you have a franchise quarterback. You know, the Steelers, 2 quarterbacks, one of them is on a rookie contract, so take advantage of that as long as you can. And then the other guy was cut loose by another team, and you were able to get him for the veteran minimum. You know, and he's could be a future Hall of Famer. You know, if not future borderline Hall of Famer. You just happen to get him for the veteran minimum. So the Steelers then could be like, all right, we're not paying for quarterback, like we're not paying anything for quarterback, so let's allocate our money everywhere we possibly can. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. It is more along the 49ers way of doing things right now. But that's because they have a guy who's playing good enough at quarterback, who's also on a rookie contract where they can throw their money all around the rest of the roster and add a lot of guys. The Steelers still can do that. They still got plenty of cap space. I think even after the Elliott signing, or they also brought back Killebrew and Christian Kuntz and a couple of guys. They're still going to have maybe $14-15 million in cap space, but they can create a lot more than that by restructures. So that's the best way the Steelers are going to have to do it. honestly. And Robert brings up a good point here. I don't know what the heck the Steelers are going to do at center. And that's kind of what today's episode, why it's titled the way it is, saying what's next. Okay, Elliott's a good signing. That's good. But there are still some holes on this roster, specifically at receiver and center. And Coleman Shelton, probably the best center on the market, best healthy center on the market. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Just signed with the Bears. So I don't know. I don't know what the Steelers' plan is at center. If it's just like first round, it's Jackson Powers Johnson, or whatever it is. If it's just draft or bust, that's just an awfully risky play because you don't know how the draft's going to fall.
Historically, and this is kind of tough. Historically, the Steelers go to the pro day of the player they're taking in the first round. Now, there was a choice to be made where yesterday Georgia's pro day and Oregon's pro day happened at the same time. And the Steelers sent the cavalry out to Athens, Georgia, and not to Eugene, Oregon. They sent everybody to Athens to watch guys like Lat McConkey and Cedric Van Pran and Amarius Mims, etc., instead of going to watch Jackson Powers Johnson. Now, two things could come from this. Number one, there's just more talent to scout in Athens, which is true. Number two, by this point, I would expect that the Steelers would have already done their homework pretty extensively on Jackson Powers Johnson. And of course, Mike Tomlin was from me to this camera away at the Senior Bowl from seeing him. So it's not like the Steelers don't know who Powers Johnson is. Now, there's more homework, I think, to be done on Zach Frazier. Obviously, Frazier injured his knee pretty significantly on the last play of West Virginia's season last year. He didn't really compete at the Senior Bowl. He did practices, but there was no running or contact. He did pad-less practices when everybody was in pads. And then he took forever with medicals at the combine too. True story, the last day of combine interviews a week ago from Saturday, it was offensive lineman, and Zach Frazier had his availability at whatever time it was scheduled. He was almost 2 hours late past his scheduled slot time because he was at medical, getting scanned, getting checked. He said he had one team, wouldn't say what team it was, that wanted to look at his other knee, his non-injured knee, just to make sure everything was good. That's what teams are doing in this process, and that's how extensively Zach Frazier got his knee checked. All of these teams are doing diligences on their needs, and certainly the Steelers are doing that at center. So I'm not putting too much stock into the Steelers not being at Powers Johnson's pro day, but it's important to note that they sent the cavalry to Athens, Georgia, and now today they're at Clemson, where there are two really high-end prospects, namely at cornerback Nate Wiggins.
Yeah.
And when you look now at the Elliott signing, that checks off another need, right? When you sign Patrick Queen, that checks off. Got a little alert going on there.
Amber alert.
Really
need to turn this off. My
Or it's Slender Man, for those that know that game.
Come on. Jeez.
Or it's The Purge. Hope not.
No, it's an Amber alert.
So they sent the cavalry to Athens. Nice. So they sent the cavalry to Athens. They're at Clemson today. And when you look at the Elliott signing, that knocks off safety as a position of need early. When you look at the Queen signing, that knocks off linebacker as a position of need early. I still think that cornerback is a position of need. I think that gets addressed at some point in the draft. Yeah. But now we shift that conversation this week from, looking at cornerback and center and tackle in the first round or safety and linebacker early rather. Now you look at, is wide receiver an option? Do they stick at left tackle? Do they stick at or right tackle? Or do they stick at center as that projected first round? I think they have options, and what this week did was it set up what the Steelers could potentially do with that first round pick, and even those couple of picks on day two.
I think, by the way, welcome, Ryan. Said, woohoo, finally caught the Southside Boys live. Well, welcome. We appreciate you guys, or you tuning in. And then Callie Steeler, member for a month.
Yeah,
appreciate that. So thank you guys. But yeah, I think the one thing Mr. CJ Amber alert that they signed another free agent. No, definitely not.
That's a hell of an alert if that's what your free agent alert is.
Yeah, that should be like if I ever get a text from a source, like that's what I need to make my text tone for any whenever sources text me. But yeah, so listen, the cornerback thing, like Okay, so acquiring Dante Jackson, signing Sean Elliott, like they've got their starters in the back end now, right? Like if you talk about, you probably you still need to worry about like a nickel corner, like a slot corner, like that's something they still need to probably address. But as of right now, in terms of your base defense, you got Joey Porter Jr., Dante Jackson, you got Deshaun Elliott, Minkah Fitzpatrick, or DeMonte Casey, whichever one you want to say is the starter opposite Minkah. I might even lean Elliott on that, to be honest, but just you got your starters now. So now it's about, okay, that frees you up. Okay, add any more depth signings. Okay, great. Or now you can go into the draft and have flexibility. You're not forced into drafting for need, which is what the Steelers, and that's why I'm kind of concerned about, like, okay, what are the Steelers doing at receiver? What are they doing at center? Now, granted, it's the second day of like official free agency. Like free agency is like not even technically 24 hours old yet.
Right.
The official point of it. So there's still plenty of time, but centers are going off the board like crazy.
Now they are.
And so it's like, okay, well, what's the plan? Like, is your plan right now for in case things go badly in the draft and you're not able to get Jackson Powers Johnson or Zach Frazier or Cedric Van Pran or any of those top centers? Is Nate Herbig your plan? And now that's nothing against Nate Herbig. I think he's a quality lineman to have on your roster. But if that's your plan for starting center, I think the Steelers can shoot a little higher than that. And when you go into the draft, having to address need, that always handcuffs the team. That forces you to reach for positions when you shouldn't be reaching for anything. That's what the draft is for. The draft is for adding high quality players that can become part of your future. Because first round picks you can have 5 years of control over, plus the ability to franchise tag. And then every other draft pick, it's 4 years of control with the ability to franchise tag. You have, cost control over these guys. And that's why, yes, it'd be ideal if they could get one of those centers in the draft, but that's never guaranteed. And again, you're forcing yourself into having to draft for position, draft for need, which is never a good idea. And so I'm a bit concerned that they haven't gone after a center yet. There's a lot of smoke around Tyler Boyd at center. Or I'm sorry, not a center, at receiver. So, I would assume there's still a lot of centers on the board. Or centers, man, I'm center minded today. There's still a lot of receivers on the board. So, that's not really an area to be too concerned about right now because there's still quality players out there. But center is becoming more and more of a legitimate concern as more and more free agents fly off the board, and that kind of puts the Steelers in a hole.
How about Cali Steeler? 10 gifted membership.
Appreciate it.
We appreciate that, Callie. If you got one from
Go
Callie,
grab one.
Or if you got one from Brent, go grab that. Say thank you.
Awesome.
Drop some emojis in the chat. How cool is that? Thank you for the generosity. We appreciate that. Check this out, too, by the way. Now, I was thinking in terms of that center position at the draft. And I think a couple weeks ago, even during or before the combine, I mentioned there are some teams that are drafting around the Steelers that also need center. And namely the Rams, which is one slot ahead, pick 19 of the Steelers. There's some rumblings out of Los Angeles that they're going to move guard Steve Avila to center and let him start. They signed Jonah Jackson, the Lions left guard, and they re-signed Kevin Dotson, obviously, to play right guard. And now they're talking about Avila, a guy they spent, I believe, a second-round pick or a really pretty decently high-round pick on in recent drafts. They're talking about moving him to center. So if that move materializes, if that move happens, that's a center of need away from the Steelers. That is a position that the Rams could the Rams could attack a different position in the draft. And now maybe Jackson Powers Johnson is more likely to be available at 20. I don't think Zach Frazier at 20, the value's there right there. I think he'd be more suited if the Steelers moved up from 51.
Yeah.
If the Steelers moved up from 51. I think the most likely routes to wrap up free agency for the Steelers are adding another veteran receiver, and there's a ton of smoke, like you said, around Tyler Boyd for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But adding another veteran receiver, and I would say if you look at this defensive tackle market, it's gone pretty highly. It's gone as far as the money goes. A lot of defensive tackles are getting paid. Maybe the Steelers wait for that market to quiet down a little bit and then strike and get their guy. So I would see those those positions as the next likely avenues within free agency. I still think they would need to add another receiver, another cornerback, a tackle, and a center in the draft at some point.
All right, so not really breaking news here, but tomorrow the Steelers will be hosting a press conference. No specific players have been named, but just so happens that Russell Wilson's Instagram, he's
at the barbershop.
He's at the barbershop in Pittsburgh getting cleaned up. So I would assume that the Steelers probably introduce him tomorrow. I just trying to put two and two together there. So I
also saw a photo of his wife, of course, pop star Sierra, post a shot of her boots, BOOTS, on a windowsill at like an apartment downtown. So it appears the Wilson family is here. We have Mr. Unlimited. That's my favorite Russell Wilson bet. That's my favorite Russell Wilson bet.
The question is, do you think that Sierra will bring her goodies to the press conference tomorrow?
I don't want to lose control, so I don't know. We'll see.
I couldn't help myself, man. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I love dad jokes.
Pitt's up 12.5, by the way. Check that out. Yeah, I'm still turning my eye over to the left over here to look at some college basketball. 12-point lead for the Panthers at half. How about that?
I think Spice Creations got my joke, by the way.
Oh, I got it. That's why I played off of it. Hello? I'm glad Spice got it. I'm glad Spice.
I don't think Al appreciated it very much.
Oh my gosh! Send some emojis. Send some emojis in response to that.
That's by the way, that song I referenced by Sierra. That's some old school, right there. That's like, I think that's like my high school days. Like, honestly, I have to say, when did my goodies come out?
Go ahead, check it out.
I'm curious. My goodies by Sierra. That was 04. Boom.
Was that your high school days?
I graduated 05. So, yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Yes, Mark, I did say that. Pitt's up 12 at halftime. I'm not going to obviously give play-by-play because that's not really legal. So.
Jordan says she can hold for field goals. That's actually a really good transition because the Steelers have shored up a lot of their special teams.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Chris Boswell, obviously, like one of the best kickers in the NFL. They got him locked up. They signed Bill Burr to punt for them. No, his name's not Bill Burr, but he looks like him, so I'm going to call him that for right now, just because I want to. And then they locked up Christian Kuntz to a 3-year deal. That became official this morning. Miles Killebrew was re-signed to a 2-year deal. All-pro core special teamer last year. I mean, dude, like the one thing that's badass is Bill Burr, a good holder. He tells some really good jokes. I can tell you that. No, I honestly, I haven't done that kind of homework on him yet. So, but it's good. It's good to see the Steelers, keeping the good special teams guys, and then obviously upgrading at punter. I think that's Killebrew, bringing him back. Special teams is so overlooked by a lot of people. This is it's good to see the Steelers shore this up to upgrade where they needed to upgrade, and then keep the guys that were good. They did that. They kept Kuntz. They kept Killebrew. Obviously, you're going to have other guys who can make tackles on special teams, on return duties and stuff like that, and be able to block. But I think they still have Miles Boykin on the roster. So either way, they'll get it all figured out. But it kind of goes to show that special teams, your main special teams players, your long snapper, your kicker, your punter, your core special teamer, your captain on special teams is still there. The Steelers show how much they care about that by having all that done already.
Special teams component, as Mike Tomlin would say at multiple junctures.
All 3 phases, man. Mike Tomlin pays attention to all 3 phases.
Signing Killebrew back was very important on a lot of different levels. Obviously, what he does for that room was an all-pro for it, but his aptitude to block punts, to block kicks, and he keeps everything organized there. He really is the straw that stirs that drink. Danny Smith loves a guy like that. He's been everything you could ask for from a special teamer, and the Steelers made sure to pay top dollar for it. I believe it's not the highest, but it's one of the highest contracts for a core special teamer in league history. It's not based off of average annual value. It's not the highest, but it's pretty close to it. So they made sure to reward, so to speak, Killebrew for being really damn good at his job. And
Yeah.
obviously Christian Kuntz, really good long snapper, doesn't have any blunders. Even like
One of the most likable dudes in that locker room too, by the way.
he's so cool. He's so
Yeah.
cool. Even like on the field from the cleanliness standpoint, not many ground balls, nothing really sails over the punter's head. The one blunder he had last year was a call that never should have been.
Right.
And that was the head movement against the Titans.
Yeah, it's not even really. That was just a missed call by the referees. So see somebody asking here, Mr. Nick Time asked, top names left in at center for agency, and then Chad brings up Connor Williams is very good, but it's coming off an ACL. Honestly, at this point, if the price is right, I think the Steelers need to entertain this, even if it's a 1-year prove it deal or if it's like a 2-year deal, something along those lines, just so that, like, listen, you can shore up something. Now, Connor Williams is coming off an ACL injury and he won't be ready for the start of the season. So if Connor Williams is the signing, I don't think he will be, just unless I hear anything different. There's going to have to be some sort of other contingency plan to start the year. And so that's why I don't think Connor Williams really works out, in this particular scenario. But yeah, when he's healthy, he's a very, very good center. He would already be off the board by now if he were healthy.
Right.
He'd probably be the most pursued guy at that position. So really, really interesting to see how that market's going to play out. But there's not too much left. Honestly, a lot of the other quality centers, like unquestioned starters, are off the board by now. There might be a couple of other guys that could fill that role, but you're not talking about adding a lot of quality. It'd be definitely cost control, and would still probably set up center to be an early draft choice.
Mm-hmm. After the show yesterday, before we wrap up, Mason Rudolph is officially not going to be a Steeler anymore. He has signed a 1-year deal, just over $3 million with the Titans. He's going to go, I would presume, to back up Will Levis down in Tennessee. Of course, the Titans used the 2nd-round pick. I believe it was 33rd overall on Levis in last year's draft. Mm-hmm. So Mason Rudolph gets, if you want to put it this way, gets more money than what the Steelers gave Russell Wilson. Now, Wilson was always going to get a deal that was significantly cheaper, but curious to know on that number and on those years, because in my speculation, I thought 2 years was going to be the number for Mason Rudolph or any other quarterback. Now, with the Kenny Pickett, obviously 5th-year option, it kind of depended on, who was going to win that battle in training camp. But Mason Rudolph moves on. He is going to the next chapter, and as Pete says here, he gets to go hang out with Ramon Foster down in the Nashville area.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, Mason Rudolph, he'll get an opportunity to play. Not only, do I think he can beat Malik Willis for the backup job, but I think that if Will Levis doesn't pan out, that Mason Rudolph is good enough in which he could earn an opportunity to get some playing time. And so I think that's really cool for Mason. I think it's a good opportunity for Mason. Wish him the best of luck. Seriously, he's the fact that he was able to take a 4-game performance and turn himself into an unwanted guy, into a guy who could get some legitimate playing time this season is a pretty cool thing, and good for him being able to turn that around and get a nice payday. I understand, in terms of, the lure of the NFL, when you see the Kirk Cousins massive contracts, like, yes, this is a minuscule amount of money compared to that, but at the end of the day, it's still a max value of $3.86 million. I don't think anybody's really going to turn that down. After taxes, you're still clearing more than $1.5 million. I mean, come on now.
Pretty nice chunk of change. And I don't think there's any, big tax. I think he's going to get a little tax break there in Tennessee either. I don't think they have state income tax in Tennessee.
I don't know. That's one thing I'm going to miss about living in Texas. There's no state income tax here.
Yeah. Well, I learned that the hard way this year when I or the last year rather, when I moved back.
I will say this though, like I was expecting it to be more of a burden than it actually is, like the state income tax. It's not that much more, at least in terms of like what I make, compared to what NFL players make. Obviously they get into a much higher tax bracket than state income tax on top of that. Then yeah, you're talking about where'd all my money go? But no, it's not that much more. It's just
No.
But it's also a pain in the butt because I'm going to be doing my own taxes here either later this week or like maybe early next week. And I always dread doing taxes. I hate it. And
it's the worst, man.
Because I earned wages in Pennsylvania last year, I have to file state income tax. I'd had to do that. I did that for the first time last year. And it just makes the entire process even more.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I have somebody do it for me.
Yeah, so Mike, I don't like doing things that are illegal. That's the problem. I would love to be able to just say, oh yeah, I still live in Texas.
Yeah.
Only the fact is that I have a Pennsylvania driver's license and I'm a registered voter still, even though I've been back in Texas for not quite a year. I'm still technically a registered voter in Pennsylvania. I never got my license changed back over.
Don't do anything illegal. Please.
I'm not going to do anything illegal.
We need you. We need you here.
I'm not doing anything illegal.
Yeah, I'm actually going Saturday to pick up my forms and everything because I'm paying a family friend of mine to do it, and
nice.
Just making it easy on myself. I'd rather pay up and have it done right than try to do it myself and screw something up, and then next thing I know, I have people knocking on my door. I don't want that.
Mike, I'm about to be moving back to Pennsylvania. I'm glad I didn't get it changed over.
In hindsight, I got mine changed over to Pennsylvania. I had actually my whole life. I had.
I've also had to show my ID to certain places. Like, yeah, no, like if it were, yeah, okay. We don't need to get into this on here.
To the bar, wink. Yeah. To the bar.
That's not the only place.
Yeah, California state taxes are insane. Yeah, no, I'm good on that.
I'm not sure about that. That's bad, but also my wife is military. I'm not, so I don't know. But
yep, no Ramon Foster show today. DK and Ramon will be back tomorrow on Friday to get you set up on a football Friday, get you set up for the weekend. Turk, real quick, let's get final thoughts in. I'll start with a question from Turk. We still need another quarterback. Corey, where do the Steelers go? I think it's day 3 of the draft by this stage, or like 4th round at earliest. I think you look at like the Spencer Rattler, Michael Pratt, Joe Milton, that tier of quarterback in the draft. That's where I feel the most likely move is for that third quarterback to help fill out the roster. I think that's where it's going to be. They didn't meet any quarterbacks that, if you look at projections or rankings that are like high end in Indianapolis or at the Senior Bowl for that matter. They didn't meet with any of them. So I would be inclined to think they're going to look at day 3 guys like Pratt and Milton and Rattler. Who else is in that tier? That kind of thing. Tagovailoa to his brother, Talia Tagovailoa out of Maryland. Yeah. Like that's where I think the most likely third quarterback comes in. As Kai Blue says, he loves Pratt. I do too. I think Pratt is the best among that bunch.
Yeah. Final thought for me. Man, this driver's license thing has like got me all. I'm like, man,
you're fine.
Oh no, I know I'm fine, and it's in a few months. It's not even going to matter anyway.
Right.
It's March. I'll be moved up there in June, so yeah, who cares? I'm just more dreaded about doing taxes. Taxes suck. I hate doing them.
Get them done.
Oh yeah, no, I need to get them done. Let's see. Final thought from me. Just continuing to hammer home like receiver, center. Those are the 2 biggest needs right now. You definitely could upgrade some other areas of the roster, but I think just that at that point, it's just upgrades. Defensive line. Yeah, you'd like it to be a little bit better. There's still reason to be concerned over Ogunjobi. Obviously there's concern about Cam Hayward. Now, granted, he was playing injured literally all last year whenever he did play. So there's, reason to think that, if he's healthy, then he'll be Cam Hayward again. But, whenever you're getting up into the age that Cam is, you just, there has to be a little bit of concern there. Like, okay, can he still be, Cam Hayward? If he can, awesome. Like that makes everything better.
Right.
But still, at the end of the day, I think defensive line is okay. The Steelers really like Keanu Benton. I expect him to play into a larger role. Receiver and center, those are my two biggest concerns right now. They got to add something. I think they need to add a couple of receivers in free agency, and then even go into the draft with the potential of adding, preferably maybe on day 2. But they definitely need to add. And center is becoming more and more of a concern as more free agents are flying off the board. So that's what I'm looking forward to. Again, we have one more show to do this week, so we'll see what happens.
Tackle. They need a tackle. Did you hear your voice crack? They need a tackle.
Yes, but that's still more upgrade. You still have a body there to start. Now, granted,
not a great one.
Listen. I'm not debating that there's not concern over Dan Moore. I'm not saying that there's not concern there, but right now you literally have Calvin Austin as your number 2 receiver. That is a bigger concern to me over Dan Moore as your either one of your starting tackles.
I think it's pretty equal.
No, Calvin Austin again. That's nothing against Calvin Austin, but you're talking about a very, very unproven player. Being your number 2 receiver.
I get that.
That's even a concern if he's your number 3, and right now he's number 2.
Gotta add
something else.
Because Woods here says if Latham, the Alabama right tackle, falls to 20, can't pass that up, I'll add Fashanu from Penn State. If either of them fall to 20 or Fuaga from Oregon State,
one of those 3 left tackle. I'm trying to remember.
He is, but Broderick could play. Broderick proved he could play right. So
yeah, but I'm also trying to remember.
I get that. I would be more inclined. Yeah, I would be more inclined to say that they would look at a right tackle than a left. Yeah. Like if Fashanu, and by the way, Fuaga, the Oregon State kid, has a connection with Sayamalo. Yeah, it's a really obvious connection. Both offensive linemen played at Oregon State, and there's the Polynesian connection.
I think tackles a pick in the first 3 rounds. I'm not.
To be, I think.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's not going to be. I think that's why the Steelers aren't. They've got, but it's kind of the same thing at cornerback. You could still, definitely you could upgrade, but you have at least got starters that can go out there and actually play right now. It's not like looking over at, how did Brad Pitt's Billy Bean put it in Moneyball? Like right now, if a grounder hits to first base, there's nobody there to stop it from rolling. It's kind of that situation at receiver right now. It's kind of that situation at center right now. Not quite as bad at center because at least we know Nate Herbig has NFL experience playing center. And again, it's not that Calvin Austin can't play receiver. And it's not that he doesn't have any NFL experience. It's just he's still a very unproven player, and he's currently your number 2 receiver. That's why, to me, receiver is undoubtedly your biggest need right now.
That's right. All right, no DK and Ramon today. They'll be back tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern. We will be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern for a Friday edition, a Football Friday edition of the South Side Beat. He's Chris Halicke. I'm Corey Crisan. Beautiful day outside in Western Pennsylvania. Go enjoy it. Get outside. Set up a tea time. Go to the driving range. Do something.
We're going to have some severe thunderstorms with some potential for hail this afternoon here in North Texas, which is fine because I'm getting my roof replaced in a couple of weeks.
There you go.
So do it all now. Get it all out of the way now. Once that new roof gets up, Texas better cooperate.
Pete says Ramon is probably helping Mason buy a house. I would love to have Ramon Foster be my real estate agent. That'd be something. All right, we're out of here. We'll talk to you Friday. Have a good one, everybody. Cheers.